The fact that they were able to achieve a $2 trillion market cap without selling one 5G iPhone is remarkable. It speaks to the strength of their portfolio, their hardware portfolio during the pandemic, tablets and laptops with 1 billion consumers working remotely and 1 billion consumers learning remotely. But it's this potential that 5G will cause a multi-year upgrade cycle and turn a headwind to a tailwind as far as unit growth in smartphones. That could drive the shares to $3 trillion in our view.
Tom, so that's the fundamentals for the stock, and clearly you're bullish on those fundamentals. What do you think about the risks to the downside when you consider not so much just the technicals of the share price, but what the sort of psyche might be of people that have held this and made so much money in it, that if we do see a bit of a pullback, whether in Apple shares or the broader market, whether it becomes a key source of profits for investors just more broadly, and that once the tide turns a little bit, whether it could pull back quite significantly?
Yep, so some excellent questions there, unpacking that quickly. So on the psychology front, I think the share split could benefit to that extent. So consumers may be, or investors may be less likely to opt out with the pending share split. As far as risks go, I think the biggest risk is China. 15% of their sales come from China. And to the extent that they have, either a prolonged U.S.-China trade war or just other challenges in China, I still see that as the biggest risk to the share fundamentally.
In November could be something of a binary event for U.S.-China trade, and Apple has long been in the crosshairs of that. I mean, the expectation is that the saber rattling against China will continue to ramp up, but that policy actions will, for the most part, be on hold until afterwards. So what would you say about owning Apple after the election, if that is the case?
So I do think that China is one of those policies that there's united, anti-China stance from both the reigning president and the Democrat-elect. So I do think even if Joe Biden becomes president, it doesn't mean that the China issue will go away for Apple. It may mean that the tariff issue for China goes away for Apple. But I would say this is a risk that we're going to continue to monitor, regardless of who's ultimately in the White House.
Tom, how concerned are you about the stock split? I mean, in its own right, of course, it's not a negative. My point really is whether people have counted it too much as a positive, and that the run-up we've seen in the last month or so, which did come as well, of course, after strong quarterly earnings, but whether that's been a big factor behind the run-up and whether that could unwind as quickly as it's risen.
Well, so that's an excellent question. I do think that stock splits have served as a short-term catalyst, much like they did in the tech boom days of the early 2000s. But I think more important was your other comment that their June quarterly earnings were so favorable and they have so much momentum. And again, they still have yet to sell one 5G iPhone. So I think that there's still a lot of good news ahead for shares of Apple.